Well, this is Dateline News and Conversation. The topic tonight is about Canada. Vancouver. Is Vancouver going to exit Canada? Reminded me of many years ago when Quebec wanted to leave Canada. We're going to talk about U.S. Canadian relations, how they've deteriorated because of Trump. Just another one of the threats, conflicts that he's engaged in. Yeah, the peace president, right. My guest is Rick Walker. He's a longtime journalist. He's a real professional. He's got his own channel, Maverick News, and I would encourage everybody, if you're interested in a viewpoint from Canada, what's going on not only in Canada but all the world, check it out. Rick, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure.
And a privilege as always. Thank you for having me back, Regis.
So, as I mentioned in the beginning, I want to talk about things Canada. But Rick, I can't help but asking you, after we finish talking about Canada, how you see the situation unfolding in Ukraine after the horrific missile strike, 3 of them, one after the other. They weren't drones, on that dormitory in Lugansk in the Donbas region. And Russia's response, they did respond, but people are questioning, well, was it a significant enough attack? Did it accomplish what they hoped to either get, not Ukraine, but to get the United States vassals in the EU, specifically England, France, and Germany, who it's well known, they're behind all of these strikes. Ukraine doesn't have the personnel, the training, nor do they have the intel that's required to direct these missiles and drones 1,000 or 1,500 kilometers into Russia. And then at the same time, we have this situation in the Gulf. I want to ask you about that as well. But first of all, Rick, you know, because we've had many shows before, and I've said that I have a great love for Canada for 2 reasons. My maternal and fraternal grandparents came to the state of Maine from Quebec. And so I'm French Canadian. I also studied in the Niagara Falls, Ontario in college for 4 years at Mount Carmel College. Many people in Ottawa, certainly in the Niagara region, will certainly know about Mount Carmel College. But I love Canada. I thought the Canadian people, they seem just like me. I mean, you're so much like Americans, except that I think you're more sensible and you're more conservative. Anyway, Rick, what the heck is going on in Vancouver? This isn't new. It's been going on for a while. It seems that they are oil rich, and they feel that, I don't know, they don't need Canada, they don't need Ottawa. Tell me, what the hell is going on?
Well, just an important point off the top. It's not really Vancouver, which is in British Columbia. It's the province of Alberta that is in play right now, where you have a group of separatists who have been extremely active over the last, probably 2 years, trying to push forward with an effort to have a referendum on whether Alberta should separate from Canada. They say that the province has been unfairly treated by Ottawa. They're overly taxed, that there's too much government overreach, and they want a sovereign Alberta. to become an independent nation, and not a nation within a nation, but an independent, fully sovereign nation. There's also a movement afoot here, though, that really complicates things, which is that some people want Alberta to become the 51st U.S. state. And that's because of comments that stretch back from Donald Trump repeatedly over the past couple of years, stating exactly that, beginning with some verbal barbs that were exchanged between Trump and former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But of course, now we have a new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. The last federal election here was fought on largely the threat coming from the United States to Canada and Canadian sovereignty. And Canadians voted for Carney and the Liberal government, and kind of rejecting the conservative, or at least the conservative in name, party here in Canada, because people became so fearful of what the United States might do to this country, like literally possibly take it over. And while other people were thinking Trump was initially joking, it has become painfully clear that no, he's actually very serious about it. And there is absolutely a lot of evidence, and just straight up, it's just straight up obvious that Trump and the MAGA movement on the U.S. side is directly involved in helping to fuel the separatist fires out in Alberta, oil-rich Alberta, where you have one of the largest oil deposits on the face of the planet. And I think that really is at the heart of the matter here. There are big U.S. corporations, oil companies, and there's big U.S. money with an eye on getting a hold of that precious, precious oil resource. So that's really where we're at the moment. And there will be now finally a question placed on a ballot coming this October, Regis. But it won't be a referendum to decide if Canada will remain together. It will be a question, which is it's the strangest thing I've ever seen. But there will be a referendum on whether we should have a referendum coming up this October. It's very complicated, a lot of politics being played, and well, I think Canada's in a lot of trouble.
All right, let's go back to the United States and specifically Donald Trump. You know, he announced, I mean, way back in the beginning of this second term, you know, that he thought that Canada should be the 51st state. We talked about that. I mean, I thought, what a freaking moron he is to think that Canada, our northern neighbor, good partner in so many things, that he's threatening to annex it. How's he going to do that? You know, is he going to do it militarily? I mean, and then he's talking about annexing Greenland. Greenland will be the 51st state. But if he gets both of those, we're up to 51 and 52. And then who knows, is Venezuela going to become 53 and Cuba 54?
Yeah. Oh my God! And what they're doing in Cuba right now is just, it's inhumane. They're blockade, preventing energy from getting there. The people are suffering. It's just so wrong.
Yeah, it's evil. There's no other word to describe what's going on in Cuba as evil, and in other parts of the world, including the attack on Russia by the U.S. and the West. It's been going on in my lifetime since 1945, but actually it's been going on for a couple of centuries. That European colonial desires have been to balkanize Russia, break it up, and steal its resources. And colonialism can only be described as something evil because it's murdered hundreds of millions of people all over the world. And the Western colonialist powers, including now the United States, have done nothing but kill, commit genocide, and rape and pillage all of these countries for their resources. And, now it seems to be that Russia is their prime target, but now Trump is looking at Canada. Canada also has unlimited resources, not just oil, but Canada is an enormous country. So I want to talk a little bit more about Trump. How is Trump being viewed in Canada by the people, if you can judge that, and maybe by the politicians and Carney? Comment on that for a bit, if you would.
Again, I find the situation strange, but I think a lot of it is strange because of social media. You have real deep division here, just as you do in the United States, where, and on one hand, you have people who see Trump as a real threat, and in Canada's case, an existential threat to the country, to Canada. And on the other hand, you still have a strangely deeply committed base, even here in Canada, the Maple MAGA movement, that see him as the greatest president in history and maybe the savior of Canada. They think somehow he might end up saving Canada by absorbing it, annexing it, taking it over. And I would say they're supportive of that idea. It is very strange, but you have to be here to, I guess, experience the social media onslaught. And a lot of it, I think, is propaganda, and there's big US money and influence behind these social media campaigns. It's foreign interference is what it comes down to. Yeah. And it's intense.
Yeah. And the United States has perfected this art of soft power, using money, one, to bribe, money to create a vast network of people or bots that create exactly what you're talking about right now: misinformation, disinformation, lies, flat out lies, which the majority of people that are on social media are not capable of critical thinking. They're not capable of analyzing what is really happening to them. And, we've talked about this before, but I can't tell you the disdain that I have for the country of my birth. Henry David Thoreau famously said, somewhere around 1850 or 1860, that to be associated with the United States government, one has to be ashamed. And, that was back in 1850, the 19th century. And I think right now, how anybody can be associated with the United States government is beyond me.
Well, that's the thing about Canada, Regis, is we don't have much of a choice because we're literally joined to the United States geographically, right? But it was the world's longest undefended border. It was not that long ago, prior to 9/11. You could just cross the border, show a driver's license, and they'd say, "Have a nice day," and that was it, right? There was no need to defend the border. But things have changed so much since then, and they continue to evolve in a very negative way. But we don't have a choice. We have to find a way to live with our neighbor to the south, and we're integrated with them economically because of our position geographically. Nevertheless, because of what Trump has been doing, our country has been it's been a major pivot away from the U.S. We're decoupling. We are finding new ways to assert our independence, to get away from the United States. Our trade links, being severed in many ways. That's why we're reaching out to countries around the world through Mark Carney, which surprisingly, because he has that liberal on him, I'm like, I can't believe I'm agreeing with a lot of what he's doing, but I can't disagree with reaching out to China to expand trade and to all these other countries around the world. it's pragmatic, it's necessary, and I think it's long overdue, frankly, because we need to assert Canada's sovereignty and independence, not Alberta's.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. It's been fairly well reported and well known. Carney uh, has tried to connect with China on a trade level, on probably many other levels. China's really interested in development,
Yeah.
and development that's a win-win for everybody. China is not coming across as a colonial power. They never have been in their 4,000 or 5,000 year history. But Canada, from what I'm reading, is also making overtures to NATO countries and even to NATO itself. Can you enlighten me a little bit more on that? Because that would seem to me to be Canada doing this to Donald Trump.
Yes, because you're
or even giving him the finger. I mean,
yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
It is a reshaping of the world geopolitically, isn't it? We certainly are entering a new multipolar geopolitical reality, and Canada is, it's strengthening, or I guess reaffirming its ties, its beginnings, even with Britain, because that's where Canada came from. Have never been, though, a country of conquest. We've been a country of compromise. We did not have a revolution. We have been a country of evolution. We didn't have a violent break from Britain. We have a constitution that evolved over time. First the British North America Act, and then later in 1867, we became a separate country, but still connected, still tied to Britain. And even today, even after 1982 and the patriation of the Constitution, here we still have the king as our king. But people really don't understand the relationship at all. They think it's like he rules over us as the king of Britain, but it's not really set up that way at all. He serves as our king, not the king of Britain serving over us. He doesn't rule us, he reigns over us. He serves us. It's a very complex legal thing.
No kidding.
But that's part of what Canada is about, where it's a very complex relationship that we have with all these other countries around the world, especially the United States, where our greatest friend is also our greatest threat. So we try to maneuver through all of these things diplomatically, using nuance and hopefully not weapons.
Well, I'm known to be not a monarchist.
Yes.
I don't know. And it's not just because I was born and raised in the United States and I believed in the revolution. I know the myth and the lies behind all of that now, but
yeah.
This whole idea of monarchy, royal bloodlines, that somehow God and the Vatican approved of this, the Holy Roman Empire. But
the thing with this, Regis, is this is one of the things that is, I think, saving Canada at the moment, because if Trump invades us, he's going to war with Britain and all of these other countries as well. And it's not as cut and dried, or it's not quite the way people think. When Carney became prime minister, in order to send a message to Trump, he summoned the king. He said, "We need you to come to read the throne speech." And so he did. King Charles came and he read the throne speech, which has only happened a couple of times in Canadian history. But by doing that, he sends a message to Trump saying, this is who we are. But the king didn't. This is why people don't understand it. The king didn't. It wasn't his throne speech. It was written for him. And so Parliament, the voice of the people, was expressed through the king. He read the words of Parliament, our representatives elected. So the monarchy, especially for Canada, has been an evolution as well. The involvement of the king. He does not rule over us. He does not create our laws. There is still royal assent at the end of a legislative process, but that's a long, lengthy democratic process that takes place where checks and balances are observed all the way along. So there's a process, a democratic process involved in the whole thing. This is not an absolute monarchy. And that's what people really don't understand, because in people's minds, they think that it is, the king rules over everybody, and nothing could be further from the truth, especially in Canada's case. He's there to actually protect us, not to rule over us. And
Yeah.
that's what, that symbolic position right now is being used for by Canada. And I'm grateful for it at this point, because that's one heck of a threat we have south of the border right now. So I just pray for peace every day.
Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. I think a lot of people in the United States have no idea about that relationship.
Yes.
I think even less people around the world have any clue about that relationship. The thing that bothers me is that, and it's bothered me for a long time, that everybody refers to the United States and the people there as Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And you're an American. People in Central and South America, Americans. And so I've always, well, not always, but, for 20 years at least now, resisted that. I want to...
if I may, that's an incredibly important point, because that's how Donald Trump sees the United States and America, because of the Monroe Doctrine, where even at that time, the United States was saying, we don't want any other countries coming into our sphere of influence over here. You can't have any influence in America, in the Americas. Stay away from here. This is all ours, basically. And then he has reasserted that through the Monroe Doctrine, right?
Yeah.
Where he's saying this is all ours. Venezuela, Cuba, Greenland, Canada, it's all ours. It's not the Gulf of Mexico, it's the Gulf of America. I refuse. I just said it, but I refuse to recognize the Gulf of Mexico as anything but the Gulf of Mexico. I make a point of saying it on the program. I have a campaign on it's the Gulf of Mexico. I think I'm going to get some T-shirts made.
All right, listen, we're talking about the influence that the monarchy had in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I would question that what influence the monarchy has actually in England.
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's this storybook thing that many of the people know the history, but does he actually have a say in the political parties? And does he have a say in the parliament? And then, Rick, we haven't talked about this, but I know you're completely aware of it. The City of London is an incorporated city. It's a corporation, and it's a bank, and it basically operates outside of the legislature or the parliament and outside of the king. And so, when we question just how much power the royalty has in England, I mean, we can go to any other country, Denmark, Finland, wherever they have a king or a queen, they really don't make the laws. And I think it seems to be more symbolic. But I appreciate how you clarified that for Canada. I want to talk a little bit more about the break from Donald Trump, Carney really kind of emphasizing the sovereignty of Canada, not only by going to China, but he's also been making inroads in Europe. I haven't heard if he's making inroads with other countries south of the United States borders. Maybe you can enlighten us a little bit about where else Canada is moving under Carney.
Where hasn't he been? I think he has traveled already more than any other prime minister in history. He's going pretty much everywhere. European countries, China, Asia. Um, they've been talking to Mexico a lot because we have these trade negotiations coming up called the Kuzma negotiations. It's a free trade deal, and we've had free trade under the North American Free Trade Agreement. Then after that, Trump negotiated first the Canada-U.S. Mexico free trade agreement, which was, a new version of that. Trump now rejecting what he said was the best deal ever, calling this now the worst deal ever. He negotiated it. I don't know how you have it both ways, but there it is. And now we have a tariff war where he has literally picked a trade war with Canada. So yeah, he's been everywhere. I can't keep track, but he has actually been making a lot of deals and actual real deals. There was just a survey that came out. Canada now ranks number one in the world. I can't remember which who put the survey out, but it came out yesterday. Ranked number one. We were about number 18 or something on the list, if I remember right. Now, number one in terms of a country that other countries want to trade with, because we have trust, where the United States, Donald Trump has squandered that trust. And if you're talking about an economy and your currency and a place to invest, there's nothing more important than trust. Businesses want to invest internationally in countries where they know that they're dealing with honest, fair traders, not with somebody who's going to rip up a deal and try to rip them off.
Listen, I don't think Canada is not part of the BRICS, is it?
Not yet.
Yeah,
but with the negotiations going on, like we're talking to India, we're talking to Pakistan, we're talking to everybody. And the thing is, I think that Canada is going to end up being integrated into both, and I welcome that, because I think what's going on here is there is a struggle, a competition between Canada and the United States now, and Carney and Trump. The middle powers, the smaller powers, those are the ones where we are aligning with under this government more so. And while on the other side with Trump, he's like, we're the biggest, baddest Godzilla on the planet, and you have to do what we say. And we're going, well, no, maybe not, because together, all of these other small countries, if we work with everybody, we're just as big and just as powerful and more diverse and probably even more powerful. And I think Carney has actually found himself in a surprising position, because other countries seem to be looking to Canada for leadership on this front.
That's why I asked you, because I was pretty sure Canada was not part of BRICS, but they're a perfect fit, except for one thing, Russia.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Well, we got to get this Ukraine war thing out of the way and get back to peace and get everybody working together. And then we can work that out, can't we? So that's down the road.
And I think not only get the Ukraine thing out of the way, get Trump out of the way.
Yes, I think that's a big stumbling block.
And I know you're going to agree with me. Trump is not in charge. Trump, like every American president, I think Kennedy maybe was the last one that kind of broke away from the power, the big money, the multinational corporations. I think Kennedy and his brothers Bobby and Teddy, they understood what was going on, and that's why two of them are dead. But ever since then, every president, and this is not just my opinion, this is an established fact, they have been put there by big money. They have been controlled by big money, and in recent years by the Zionist lobby. There's no question about it. Trump, I don't even believe he was elected fairly. I don't believe it. And I think that there's a Latin phrase that I've loved. I learned many years ago when I was studying in Rome, minus habens. It means having less up here. He's not a very smart guy.
Really.
People will say, "Oh, he is. He was this businessman." How many bankruptcies did he go through? I don't even want to get into the Epstein files. I'm just saying, when you watch this guy's behavior, when you even superficially go over his tweets and the stuff he puts out from social media, if you can even bear to listen to the interviews he gives, he's incoherent. He's an idiot. And what he's got is a powerful personality. There's something about him that attracts people. They like some of the things that he says. Close the border, make America great again. I think most Americans know that America is a shithole country right now. There's no more industry. There's nothing. They lie about inflation. They lie about unemployment. They lie about homelessness. They lie about everything. And you got these Americans that just happen to be lucky enough to be above the cut line, let's say, and they're able to survive somewhat comfortably. And they think, yeah, let's make America great again. I don't know. I can't express the amount of contempt and anger that I have for that man. And I have a good friend who will not even mention his name. She continues to call him 47, the 47th president of the United States. And I think I'm probably going to have to start doing that. Anyway, I want to get back to what you said, because it's a positive thing that I see happening in Canada. I was not aware at how much Carney has been traveling around the world.
And Trump hates it, by the way. Absolutely hates it.
Oh, of course.
He's threatened us because of it.
Yeah. I'm loving it. Okay, I mean, I really am, because here's somebody else that's standing up to him, and I really think if Canada is making inroads with China, China is locked at the hip with Russia on this BRICS movement. BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South America. India is questionable right now, but there's another 10 or 15 countries that joined, another 20 or 30 that want to join. All of the global South wants to become a member of BRICS because of the philosophy of development for all people, the respect for the sovereignty of all people, no matter how large or small you are. They want to get rid of this big power politics. It's about a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And that really summarizes for me what China's been about and what this BRICS relationship really is all about. I have great hope for it, but I see that it's going to be a difficult transition. All right. I want to move on, Rick. I want to thank you, first of all, for helping me better understand what's going on in Canada, because I love Canada. As I mentioned in the beginning, I told you before, we had a history professor in college in Niagara Falls who said that Canada would be the number one country in the 21st century. Well, there's still a lot left in the 21st century for Canada to flex its muscles, let's say.
Yeah.
But now I want to get to current geopolitical events. I know you've been covering what's going on in Iran. Could you just describe for me and my audience what you think, who triggered this war?
Trump.
And why at this particular time? I want, from your perspective, what you think that was all about, because I think I know what it was all about. But from your perspective, what do you think it's all about?
I think it's just the dumbest war ever. It is. It in so many ways makes no sense. but it does give Trump some of what I think he wants, which is chaos. And I think that even blocking the Strait of Hormuz, or blockading a blockade, uh, gives the world higher oil prices. I think that his oil oligarch friends, these U.S. oil companies, they all profit from that. You can look at what's going on with Israel. Certainly, Israel wanted uh, to take action against Iran, and Donald Trump took the bait and willingly did so because he saw, I think, opportunities there to make money. And he's probably the most corrupt president in American history. He has made money off cryptocurrency, pump and dump scams, Trump watches. The list goes on in the ways that he's profiting from things. And now there's this, because not only are his oil oligarch elite friends making more money by producing less oil because the price has gone up so much, it ripens Canada for the picking. And and beyond that, he makes an announcement on a Friday saying there's going to be peace, and that creates a big swing in stock
Boom.
markets and and oil prices. And then the people in the know on the inside track, they know what to invest in, when to buy, when to sell, because it's just insider trading on steroids.
How many
That's what
times
I
have
think.
we seen this? How many times have we seen this Trump manipulating the stock market? I mean, it's got to be a half dozen times now already.
Oh, more, I think, yeah.
Well, just with this war in Iran, I don't know, maybe it is more. But yeah, when you look at it, cui bono, who benefits? You follow the money, and it's, you said, all his big oil friends, big corporations.
Yep.
They're the only ones benefiting from this. And, you know, as I go back and I keep saying Trump he's a puppet on strings.
What a disgrace this guy is. He uses the presidency of the United States to hawk goods, like to sell crap to people. Cell phones,
I was going to jump in. First of all, I think the first thing was Bibles. It was a Trump Bible. And then, because I did a whole show, I did 2 shows on Trump and corruption. And he is, without doubt, the most corrupt president. And it's blatant. It's in your face. He doesn't hide it. Crypto, Trump, I don't know if they're in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Lost 95% of the value.
Yeah, he's selling sneakers for $350. He's selling guitars signed by him for like $1,500.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgraceful.
Disgusting.
That it's so in your face that American people, I cannot believe they're not in the streets 24/7 and screaming for him to be removed. I mean, I can't believe.
Strangely, his base, they love it. It's like they can't see it, they cheer for it. It's it's a mind wash, man. It's weird.
Let's continue looking at what, and you mentioned he seems to like creating chaos. Whoever is controlling him likes creating chaos. I mean, look what he did with ICE just south of the border. In Minneapolis, where I have many friends, and I've been there many times. It was such a wonderful community. He sent those goons in and, kidnapping and claiming these Muslim men, Mexicans, dark-skinned, are all criminals. Yeah. It turns out that less than 1% of them have been convicted of anything. And maybe it was even a driving ticket that they got. And the lies that they're spreading about that, doing the same thing in Portland, Oregon, doing the same thing in Boston. This has never been seen before in the United States of America. This is not even the military. This is a bunch of gangster goons, a bunch of terrorists, in my opinion, and he has turned loose on the American people. And he's threatened, when he has brought the military in, at least on a couple of occasions, which is a violation of the Constitution. And he's talking about more chaos. Well, let's move away from what he's been doing in Iran. and the flip flopping back and forth. Now it's on, now it's off. Uh, is he controlled by Netanyahu? Netanyahu is angry at him. I mean, all of this tension. And then we have to come back to my part of the world. Uh, and I want your comments on what just happened here 2 days ago on Sunday, that 3 cruise missiles, I don't know if they were Tomahawks, but they weren't drones, that struck that dormitory at this school in Lugansk in the Donbass region. It killed, I don't know what it was now, 30 people, injured countless others. And immediately Putin came out and he promised revenge. And Russia did respond by the most intense bombing, shelling, drone attacks, not just on Kiev, but the worst bombing Kiev has experienced in this entire war. And I want to connect that, Rick, with the killing of those 175 kids in Minab, Iran, at that school for children on the first day of the war, with 3 Tomahawk missiles fired by the United States. Nobody's denied this. We're trying to see what really happened. Maybe it was a mistake.
Actually, Trump denied it. He denied it, but the U.S. military itself has not, and yet he has. He won't. This is another terrible aspect of the whole thing.
Well, here's what I hope, and I want your opinion on it. Yeah. I think anybody who's paying attention to news, they know, even in America, they know what happened in that school in Minab, Iran. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they have heard anything about the attack on that dormitory in Lugansk. But when people like you and I look at this, there's no... people are calling it a war crime. Mm-hmm. Rick, I said earlier in the program, it's evil. When you deliberately kill civilians indiscriminately, when you continually bomb civilian areas, this is evil. And I just want to know, Rick, what you thought if you connected both of these horrible atrocities, killing children deliberately, and what you thought. Was this reported on your side in Canada, this attack on this school dormitory in the Donbass? I know I'm sounding convoluted, and anyway, what are your thoughts?
Well, it has been not as widely reported as I'm sure that it deserves. We've mentioned it on our program, both incidents. The one that happened first was, of course, the strike in Iran, and Trump stood there in a gaggle with media on Air Force One and said that Iran was responsible, that they did it. And I was appalled. And I said, we're supposed to be better than that. If it is a mistake, you own it and do what you can to try to make things right. First step is to admit that you've done something wrong, either intentionally or by mistake. But no, he wouldn't own it. Just blamed Iran. Too many civilians dying all the way around, and there are always civilian casualties for various reasons and all conflicts. But as a result of all of this, yes, Putin is vowing revenge, and we've seen it begin to unfold. He seems to have already started this systematic series of strikes on Kyiv, vowing to level the city and strike out and attack specific decision-making centers and centers of power. But it's extended beyond that. He's hitting, infrastructure and and just about everything in Kyiv. I just don't know, though, ultimately how effective that strategy will be, because it just doesn't seem to bring anything to an end. This particular escalation on the Ukraine front feels much more serious than anything prior. And I just fear that one response begets another response, begets another one. And we're just, this is going to spiral upward again instead of toward peace. We're far from a resolution on this, I am afraid. And I just, I weep for people on both sides who are suffering,
Yeah,
just
no
everyday
kidding.
regular people.
Yeah. Anybody who's got any bit of humanity left in them has got to look at this. It goes, there's no bad guys. These are human beings. It's governments and extremely powerful forces above governments that are bringing this about. But I do have to ask you this. There's a debate. It's been going on for a few months now here in Russia between hardliners who are taking a position that Russia has not been forceful enough, that too many red lines have been crossed, which is emboldening the United States and the West to just keep escalating. And Russia's response, and people are saying Putin's response, has been patience to not escalate this to the point of the unthinkable. The unthinkable means a nuclear war where we're all going bye-bye. But the hardliners, and these are very influential people in Moscow, in the think tanks, two in particular who've gotten the most coverage, even in the blogosphere. Sergei Kataganov, who's been known to be a friend and an advisor of President Putin, is a member of a circle of influencers. In addition to him, Dmitry Medvedev, former president of Russia, has also come out, and both of them have claimed that Russia needs to attack the decision centers in Europe, specifically 3 countries that seem to be materially involved, personally involved in the attacks deep into Russia. And those are London, Berlin, and Paris. Others have mentioned Brussels, which is the command center, really, of all of Europe. So this is the debate that's going on here. Rick, how would you size that up?
Reinforces what I just said. The escalation this time feels far more serious. We've seen saber rattling before, but this time I think it's a little more real, far more concerning. I wouldn't want to see it, because any war that begins never ends the way the people are told it will end when it begins. They drag on, they take twists and turns. You never know where these things are going to go. So you expand this war, you're going to expand this war. And I think if that happens, it will set the world on fire.
Well, here's another point of view, which is being circulated out there in the social media, the blogosphere, and here in Russia. Has Russia learned anything from what Iran has done by making inoperable all of those U.S. military bases in those Gulf monarchies? Mm-hmm. And the United States has done nothing. There were even soldiers that died. They'll never tell you how many, but they have to have been a lot.
Yeah.
And Iran was bombing the hotels where they knew these military people were hiding or being housed. And it did not start a nuclear war. Trump said we're going to blow them back to the Stone Age, but you know what? It didn't happen. And so now some people are questioning, well, what if Russia decided to send one of their hypersonic missiles, which cannot be shot down, and hits a United States military base in one of these countries, maybe in Latvia, maybe one of the smaller bases in Germany? Would the United States then come to the rescue, according to Article 5, that everybody knows about? It's the mutual agreement to defend. What do you think about that, Rick? Do you think that if Russia did strike a base, a United States base in one of these countries, not a big base like Ramstein or Stuttgart, where America is known to have really large bases and concentration of command centers, what do you think could happen?
If it's a U.S. base, I would not suggest that. I wouldn't recommend stoking the pilot light of American patriotism. That's a bonfire that would erupt into something much bigger. Please don't, because I understand the table is set right now for the dissolution of NATO because of Trump, and there may be a perception that NATO is breaking up, that because of Trump the alliances are falling apart. But I can assure you that it's still there, and all it would take is an incident for people's psyches to completely do a 180 on the MAGA side. They would become fiercely patriotic, and there would be intense pressure on the president to retaliate. That's the mindset in America. They don't want to lose, even though they keep on losing. So wouldn't want to play chicken on that front, but got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Let me ask you one last question.
Yeah.
I'm always looking at the situation here from the perspective of being in Russia, not commenting from somebody's garage or somebody's living room in the United States or around the world. But I've been trying to, I've been coming here for 10 years, and I've tried to understand Russia, the Russian people, the politics here. And so I try to look at it from the Russian perspective. And here's what I see the Russian perspective, what Russia is looking at and has been looking at least for the last, 80 years. Or if you wish, since 1991, with the agreement that NATO would not move 1 inch closer to the Soviet Union, East, or now Russia. That was broken almost immediately. NATO expanded. The Warsaw Pact was dissolved. Germany was reunited. And yet NATO kept expanding. It was the United States, kept expanding NATO and into, some 10 or 15 former Soviet republics with bases and missiles. From Russia's perspective, they're being threatened. If Russia or China put a base in, you saw what happened in Cuba with the Cuban Missile Crisis. If they put one anywhere in the Caribbean or in Mexico, it would be all-out nuclear war. America would go ballistic, would not tolerate one, not even one. And yet, Rick, every single year, there are these enormous military campaigns all along Russia's borders, live fire, all gaming a first strike attack on Russia. Now, here you have Russia, this enormous country, are now being threatened by Finland and Sweden in the Arctic. Marco Rubio, who I call little old narco Mario Rubio, is in Armenia today. Armenia has been so close to Russia. I've been there several times. And he signed a deal for rare earth minerals and other minerals and a deal for cooperation. This is tearing Armenia apart. The United States has been there for decades, trying to pull Armenia out of Russia's sphere. Russia sees this. Russia doesn't seem to be doing much about it. And so, from the Russian perspective, when they look at what's happening all around them, you have to ask the question, if this is a matter of survival for Russia, as it is for Iran, to what extent will Russia go to assure its future survival? Your thoughts on this last question?
I would say maybe what we need to do is look for a new way by looking to the past. And for me, that means looking back at Canadian history. How has Canada managed to survive in the face of repeated threats from the United States over time? And we have had military conflict with the United States prior to the actual confederation of Canada into a country in 1867. There was the War of 1812. And we were in armed conflict with the United States, who attempted to take over what was the precursor to Canada, but certainly, the British colony at the time, right? I would suggest that there are serious lessons to be learned there. The Canadian way has always been a way of compromise, conciliation, cooperation, and a history of an effort toward peace. Even the creation of the country in 1867, then our first prime minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, didn't want a republic like the United States because he saw that it led to violence, to an American Revolution, and a civil war prior to the creation of Canada. So we learned from that, and we said we don't want that. We don't want a country that is steeped in blood. We want a country of peace. That's always been our way. Even our relationships with our First Nations peoples has been forged on cooperation, not flawless. It's been, there are a lot of pockmarks on that, and we try to make things right now. But we never had a revolution, and we've survived in the face of this threat from the United States, which is at a fever pitch again right now. And if you look at the way our government is responding to the separatist movement in Alberta, the rekindled separatist movement because of that in Quebec to some degree now again, and this effort to take over our country, we're taking it all in stride. We have a prime minister who's being very careful about what he says, while at the same time not taking any crap from the White House and saying, if you're going to do this, we're going to do that. And we're going to be our own people and our own nation. And that's why we are different than the United States. We are a sovereign country. We're not just Americans up north with a fake border between us. We are Canadians. And that's why I think even right now, Canada has become a reluctant leader for the world. And there are lessons to be learned there. So I would say, keep your powder dry and seek peace first. And maybe we can all avoid nuclear holocaust.
Rick, can't thank you enough for this view, this perspective from Canada. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me tonight to talk about these very, very serious issues in the situation we find ourselves